this week as a player development coach. Korver, who originally was drafted by the New Jersey Nets with a 51st pick in 2003, was famously traded on draft night to the Philadelphia 76ers for cash considerations, which the Nets used for a copy machine and to fund their summer league dues. Very famous story. Kyle actually went on to have a great 17-year career in the NBA where he made a name for himself with his high accuracy shooting. In 2009, while with the Jazz, he shot 53.6% from the three-point line, which set an NBA record. Kyle has taken his talents to Brooklyn to help the already stacked Nets team with superstars Kevin Durant, James Harden, and, of course, Kyrie Irving, along with their bench in what most likely will be a role in improving their three-point shooting. Brooklyn actually was the third best three-point shooting team last year with a 39.1% team average behind the line. The players that will probably benefit the most from Kyle's coaching is Bruce Brown, who averaged a mere 28% from the three-point line last year. With teams focusing on the big three, Brown will get his fair share of shots from the beyond the arc. And who knows, if the Nets go cold from the field like they did against the Bucks in last season's playoffs, Kyle Korver may put on a jersey one more time and show the kids how it's done. Back to you, Zarita.
Thanks, Ken. And of course, the rich get richer, it looks like. Speaking of NBA stars making career changes, EJ has an update from a former NBA champion who's trying out a whole new sport altogether.
Yeah, thanks, Zarita. So there might be a new collegiate athlete that many basketball fans are already familiar with. The person I'm talking about is a two-time NBA champion, a former Sixth Man of the Year, a guy known for his athleticism in his early years with Denver and New York, but probably more known as the guy who lost his shirt for multiple days during the Cleveland Cavaliers 2016 championship celebration. So if you haven't already guessed it yet, I'm talking about J.R. Smith. So J.R. Smith said that Ray Allen was actually the guy who convinced him to return to school and challenge himself as an athlete. They had a mini golf trip in the Dominican Republic, and after that conversation, Smith decided to enroll in the liberal studies program at North Carolina A&T. And because Smith went to the NBA straight from high school, he has eligibility to compete in college athletics. So there's a rule that, players with professional experience cannot join college teams in that same sport. But J.R. Smith intends to join the men's golf team if he receives clearance by the NCAA. And according to PGAtour.com, J.R. has a 5 handicap, and the golf coach from North Carolina A&T said that it would be a big deal if Smith were on the team. So it's safe to say that the HBCUs is definitely excited for this unique opportunity. Back to you, Zarita.
Thanks, EJ. And lastly, we have Alan and Eva with an MLS story on the LA Galaxy as they took on the Vancouver Whitecaps.
In the Western Conference, third-ranked LA Galaxy takes on number 13 Vancouver Whitecaps in a game that, based on current standings, favors the higher-seeded Galaxy.
How do Galaxy fans feel about their team's chances tonight? And what about their thoughts when it comes to in-person attendance here at Dignity Health Sports Park?
We should win at least by 1 goal. Vancouver is not a top-tier team, but, they always come and play tough.
It feels pretty good. I hope Galaxy wins tonight.
So last time we lost against them, but this time, they've been playing a lot better in the last 3 games. And we're hoping to see Dos Santos out there, maybe even Chicharito, and I think that would definitely put us over the top.
Oh, I hope they come out strong and score some goals. I'd love to see some Galaxy goals for sure. To beat Vancouver, I think, just focus. It's sometimes they lose focus and concede some goals, so just to be better on that.
It's going to be LA Galaxy who's going to win. Every match we've been to, LA Galaxy has won. But they have their technique, they have their game plays. I'm sure they'll use those, and they have a pretty strong midfield and defender, so I'm sure they'll get better or do better this time.
I think they need to step it up a little bit more. We need to see some more plays out there. They need to really step it up. Let's pick up that practice. Oh, I think they need to bring in Chicharito. They need him out there. Let's go!
México! Vamos a ganar, vamos a pasar sobre el Vancouver mínimo 3-1. Pues y jugar como jugaron la semana pasada. Y aunque no tengamos al Chicharito hoy, pero tenemos otras personas que van a hacerlo igual y con más corazón y van a salir adelante.
I got vaccinated right away because just in case the Galaxy would say, vaccinations only. So I mean, I'm not too worried about the pandemic. I'm like full steam ahead. It's fine with me. But I understand. So the cases are rising. But I mean, I won't miss a game.
We do what we can. We're vaccinated, wearing our mask, taking precautions as we can, washing our hands. So definitely still scared, but trying to do what we can to do our part.
Crowd's coming back. It's been a lot of fun. You do see a lot of people being a little more cautious than other people. I know my wife is one of the ones that doesn't go anywhere without a mask, so good for her. But in there, everybody's having a good time, and hopefully being as safe as possible. I'd like to see them make it a mandatory vaccine or a negative test before they come in, but obviously that's a lot to ask for.
With the crowds coming back, it's nice, but I'm always hesitant. I'm always careful. I wear my mask in there, and I just hope people do the same.
This whole pandemic thing, it still makes us nervous to come to the game. There is the social distancing, but we still keep our mask on. I mean, we still have the risk of, being affected, but so far it's been great and everybody's been following rules. So we just started coming back again.
I'm vaccinated now, so I feel more comfortable coming out here. But yeah, let's all try to get vaccinated. Come on, let's do it. Let's make a change. Todo está bien, todo está protegido y venimos con mucho ánimo y todo va a salir bien hoy.
Over 16,200 were in attendance for the game, many of whom spread high-energy enthusiasm to the rest of the stadium. For Galaxy fans, a landslide victory would have given them an even greater reason to celebrate. But as it turns out, the game results were tighter than what they would have liked.
LA was on the board first around the 32nd minute of the first half. On approach to the penalty area, Efrain Alvarez spotted Kevin Cabral, who was lurking near the 6-yard box. Alvarez connected with Cabral, who easily threaded the ball between the legs of a defender straight into the net. The 1-point advantage, however, didn't last. Just under 5 minutes of the start of the second half, Ranko Veselinovic and Galaxy goalie Jonathan Bond jousted for a Vancouver corner kick, but it was Ranko's header that won the duel and evened the score. In extra time, LA and Vancouver pushed for a final goal, but neither succeeded. Frustration was evident in some players who turned the contest into a shoving match. Fortunately, cooler heads prevailed, and both clubs walked off the field with a point each added to their standings.
So LA settles for a tie. But what the LA Galaxy needs to do now is regroup, especially since their next opponent is the Western Conference 5th-ranked team, the Minnesota United.
There's a lot of regular season games between now and the November playoffs. So what Galaxy needs to do is to focus and keep the pressure on in every match to stay near the top of the list.
In Carson, California, Ivan Allen, Eagle News, we live in interesting times.
Thanks, Ivan Allen, and great story with a good message. Wear your mask and get vaccinated. That's the point of it. So that's all the updates that we have for this week. We're going to take a quick break before we get into some basketball talk. We'll be right back.
Tawanan, ulitan, at siyempre, kainan. Sa nakalipas na taon, ito ang ating naging ultimate tambayan. Walang iba, kundi ang ating mga tahanan. Kaya naman, maraming iba't ibang kabuhayan ang nagsusulputan para mapanatili ang kalinisan ng ating tahanan.
Nag-start po kami ng 250 pesos lang po. Sa kasalukuyan po, halos times 10 na po yung umiikot po naming puhunan para po sa negosyo.
Gagawa po tayo ng powder detergent sa puhunan nagkakahalagang 1,500 pesos.
Lahat ng mga negosyo ngayon na tinatawag nilang convenience-based, napakaganda talaga ng potential.
Ano mga tol? Ready na ba kayong makiride sa ganitong negosyo? Ako po, si Robin Padilla. At ito po ang ulat. Kaagapay, sa hanap buhay.
Welcome back, everyone. Thanks for sticking with us. So to start off our discussion, we're going to get into some more free agency signings that happened this past week, some of which are extremes of contracts. On the one end, you have Luka Doncic signing his rookie Supermax contract, which is a 5-year, $207 million deal. On the other hand, you have former Laker Dennis Schroeder signing a 1-year, $5.9 million deal with the Boston Celtics. But it was reported that he rejected a 4-year, $89 million deal to stay with the Lakers. And lastly, you have a more conservative contract signing, and I use that word very lightly, with Kawhi Leonard's extension with the Clippers costing the organization $173 million for 4 more years of the claw. So jumping right into it, I want to get the thoughts from the panelists about some of these deals. So Ken, I'll start with you. Some people said that this was Schroeder's bet on yourself moment, which unfortunately didn't really pan out for him. So what are your thoughts on this signing?
So we call that the Nerlens Noel special. When keeping it real goes wrong, right? So Nerlens Noel, if you guys don't know, it was the summer of 2017. Right before that, he was traded from the 76ers to Dallas. And Dallas actually offered him 4 years, $70 million. And he was like, through his agent, through the advice of his agent, turned it down. And then eventually signed a 1-year prove-it deal for $4 million. Got hurt that following year. I think it was his thumb. Played like 30 games. Was also in Coach Carlisle's doghouse, so he barely got any minutes when he was actually healthy. And pretty much just signed like 1-year onesie-twosie deals from then on. So that is kind of what happened here with Schroeder. And I want to say thank you, Dennis, for your services to the Lakers. Thank you for scoring 0 points and at the playoffs at a very pivotal time. Thank you for not willing to come off the bench when we knew that was probably the best role for you. And thank you for absolutely denying this contract extension when you could have, because that probably would not have allowed us to get Russell Westbrook and all the following and all the great old talent that we were able to fill this team with. Yes, it looks old, like an old team, but I mean, on paper, it looks like the greatest team ever assembled. But I mean, back to Schroeder's situation. It's very, very, it's sad because like, yeah, he may have made some questionable moves and like had a questionable attitude, but he was really a victim of like just trying to like thinking you're better than you are, right? And that's exactly what happened to him. Is that he was just like, all right, I deserve $100 million contract, even though he was playing like he's less than $80 million contract. Lakers were very, very generous to offer him that contract in the first place. And whoever his agent is, like, should be fired and never uses an agent ever again, because I think he's gonna have a great opportunity with the Celtics this coming year, because there's a lot of talent there, but it's a new coach, and you don't know how he's going to utilize you. And so, what if you come off the bench? What if your prove-it deal year ends up being a really down year for you, and you end up doing what Nerlens Noel did, which is pretty much just continuing to sign 1-year deals, trying to prove yourself. And DeMarcus Cousins, same thing happened to him, right? Where, I mean, his was different. He got injured. It was just never the same. But sometimes it's okay to not be greedy, guys. Like when you're already making tens of millions of dollars, Anthony Davis, I think did it the right way. He could have opted out and waited to sign a bigger extension, a max contract, but he opted in and signed a multi-year extension with the Lakers. Is it as a large of a contract as he could have gotten? No, but he has an injury history and he likes the organization. So, I mean, why not? And he's already making a lot of money. So I think that is like the right way to go for depending on the situation. But for Dennis, man, sorry, bro. Like you might have skipped out on like probably your biggest paycheck, potentially ever. So
Yeah, that was probably one of the biggest, and in terms of terms too, right? Like one of the biggest that he would have been offered, but sometimes it just doesn't work out for them, right? So moving on to Luka's contract. Albert, considering the instability that we got a glimpse of earlier in the offseason with the Mavs, there was a lot of noise with the front office and even moving of players. Do you think this was the right move for the Mavs and even Doncic? Like, do you pass up on a contract like this?
Having like a generational talent like Luka, you can't not offer him the max, right? I think this is a record deal in terms of rookie contract extension. And we have to keep in mind that Luka is only 22. Add 5 years to that, and he's only 27. And he's probably getting another huge contract after that. I mean, he's only been in the league for 3 years, and he's already had 2 first-team All-NBAs. He's shown that he's a winner at every level, whether it be, when he's 16 years old at the EuroLeague. We saw what he did in the Olympics just past couple of weeks. And even just last year, in the playoffs, he averaged 36 points, 10 rebounds, and 8 assists, which is, monumental numbers. Like what you said, it's interesting to see how he'll fare with the front office and the new coach. I know Jason Kidd has been in the news recently with regards to some of his infamous coaching style. So it's going to be interesting to see how he will fare with this new money and these 5 years. It sort of gives them a new window, these Dallas Mavericks, to see if they can put a better team together. A lot of questions with regards to Kristaps Porzingis and some rumors with regards to, I'm forgetting his name, from Miami. Now he's on the Raptors.
Dragic.
Of course, Goran Dragic. So seeing if they can get a secondary ball handler. So again, you have to throw this money at him because he's such a top 5 player, maybe even top 2. So yeah, interesting to see where the Mavs will stand at the start of the season.
Just a follow-up question to that then, because it's clear that they're going to build around Luka. How much influence do you think Luka had when it came to kind of these moves in the offseason, being like, hey, I don't like this guy, get him out of here? Do you think he had say in that?
I don't think he's at that LeBron GM level just yet. I know there has been reports of him not wanting to make those decisions and focusing solely on basketball. So there is that trust between, the new front office and them making the right decision. I don't think he's there yet. Not to say that he will eventually be one to dictate who his teammates are. But again, the teammates that he has now is who he's got to run with. So we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see for sure how this pans out. But speaking of instability, EJ, what are your thoughts on Kawhi's extension with the Clippers? Do you think he has to prove his worth of this contract? Mind you, he hasn't really done a whole lot for the Clippers.
Well, I mean, the Clippers have had a bad history altogether, right? I mean, they're the second team of LA. They're never going to be the LA team. And until they win a championship, I don't think that's going to change. And especially with the team or the ensemble that the LA Lakers have already assembled this offseason, I don't think next year is going to be the year either. But I mean, is he worth the contract? 100%. I mean, the guy's made 7, either first or second all NBA defensive team. I'm pretty sure he's made numerous also all NBA teams. And the guy is already won 2 championships in 2 different teams. Yes, the first one was with, legends of the San Antonio Spurs, of Ginobili, Parker, and Duncan, but he won the MVP that year that they did win. So he was a valuable piece to that championship team. And then look at your Toronto Raptors, Rita and Albert. He was able to get you a ring in his very first year. So he's proven that he is that caliber player to receive this type of extension. And like Ken was alluding to earlier, we just don't know how your body's going to treat you over the years. And Kawhi Leonard is one of those players who do have a history with injuries. But if you can secure the bag, secure it. Don't make the same mistake that Dennis Schroeder did. And I'm pretty sure Kawhi Leonard is smart enough not to do that. He's already bet on himself when he went to the Toronto Raptors. So he has nothing else to prove. I'm sure he would love to win the first NBA championship for the LA Clippers. And he has a pretty solid team to do it, paired with Paul George already, who also signed an extension last season. So they're both in it for the long run. Now they just need to find those pieces to put around them. And they already have 2 out of a real true big 3. Maybe one year during this extension, they're able to find that last piece to form that big 3 that's going to get them over the hump. So Clippers know what they have. Kawhi Leonard's already proven his worth. But hopefully he's able to win a championship for the LA Clippers as much as Ken would not want. Yeah, as much as Ken would not want.
Not hopefully. Sorry.
Right.
Yeah, well, for sure, the Clippers bought themselves some time with that extension. And if only that team can stay healthy, that's kind of one of the biggest threats in the West for sure. So moving on, another signing that occurred this week was actually for an NBA executive and one that I was watching very, very closely. Masai Ujiri signed a long-term deal to stay as part of the Toronto Raptors front office and will become vice chairman / president of the organization. The details of his contract is still unknown, but many are reporting it will be long-term. I'm hoping like double digits, 10 years, give it to me, make us all happy. But it's no secret that he's wanted by many organizations throughout the league, given what he's done, not only for the Raptors, but also for the game of basketball in Africa with Giants of Africa initiative. So Ken, looking at this extension of an executive as a player, let's pretend you're a player, how much weight do you think players put on a strong, competent front office when making decisions of where to go? Or do you think it's all about the players and the money that they're bringing?
I mean, look at teams like the Kings, the Sacramento Kings, teams like the Knicks before James Dolan finally agreed to like step away from like making day-to-day decisions. Those kinds of teams, like you see in year after year, just continue to make really bad decisions and don't attract good talent. I mean, that's one of the big reasons why Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving did not go to the New York Knicks, which is a more storied franchise, rather than the New Jersey Nets. I mean, it hasn't really shown, right? I mean, like as far as like big boys going to the Raptors, but like what the Raptors have done since Masai joined the team in 2013 is build a very strong title contending and also a title winning team that is able to develop talent that isn't necessarily like none of their picks were 1, 2, 3 lottery picks on pretty much until this year. We'll see how Scotty Barnes does because Jalen Suggs looks really good right now. So I'm not sure if that's going to bite Masai in the butt in the future. But we'll talk about that later. But I mean, as far as like the talent that Toronto has brought on the team, I mean, he's the game maker. He is one of the big pieces to putting these teams together, like Fred VanVleet, that signing. Also, the trading DeMar DeRozan, who is pretty much the face of the franchise for a rental in Kawhi and Leonard. I mean, that looked like a really crazy deal, but it ended up working, and results, is showed, right? And so I think having a competent, front office is huge, not just for potential free agents, but for the talent on your team, because Toronto is a difficult, unique situation where they're not in the same country as pretty much all the other teams, right? And so that kind of plays as a role for attracting talent in the first place. It's hard for a lot of these U.S. players to justify having to go through customs every single game, pretty much. So, I understand that it's difficult, but I think with the Toronto's front office through the leadership of Masai, this is a great extension, and I think that it's one of those ones that it's built for the long term because of a solid, strong front office.
Oh, for sure. And let's take a moment. I think that's the nicest things Ken has ever said about my Toronto Raptors. I'm gonna bookmark this episode because it's not going to happen again. But we're going to take a quick break. And after the break, we're going to continue on with some basketball talk. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Impormasyong mahalaga sa taong bayan. Patas na pagbabalita. Papakinggan ang magkabilang panig. Lilinawin ang mga issue at kaagad na ihahatid ng objektibo. Mata ng Agila. Dumadagit ng pinakasariwang pangyayari, hindi lamang sa loob ng bansa, kundi sa iba't ibang panig ng daigdig. Mula sa Eagle News Teams at sa tulong ng makabagong teknolohiya, tiyak na makakalap kaagad ang katotohanan. Para sa mas matalas, malinaw at malalimang pagbabalita. Ito ang mas pinatalas na Mata ng Agila. Inihahatid ng veteranong broadcast journalist na si Eli Saludar. Kasama si Binibining Pilipinas Intercontinental 2019, Emma Tiglao. At pinangungunahan ng batikang mamamahayag ng bansa, Vic De Leon Lima. Mata ng Agila, Lunes hanggang Biyernes, alas 6 hanggang alas 8 ng gabi, dito sa Net25.
Welcome back, everyone, and thanks for sticking with us. So just before the break, we talked about how much of a makeup of a front office staff may or may not influence a player's decision in signing with the team. So now let's switch over to some players who have stayed put, at least for now. So it has to be said that Ben Simmons is still part of the 76ers. There are reports now that Joel Embiid is not happy with how the front office has handled the situation. So I know we've touched on this in the past, but I have to ask, Albert, can a relationship between Philly and Ben Simmons be mended enough for him to stay, or is leaving a sure thing for him at this point?
I honestly think that leaving is a sure thing at this point. I mean, you know, Ben Simmons we saw his struggles at the end of the playoffs and how many bridges that were burnt given the post-game press conferences. And usually where there's smoke, there's fire. There's reports of Ben Simmons not picking up the phone, not wanting to talk to anyone from the front office, only communicating with his agent. Again, Embiid calling him out indirectly at the end of the playoffs. And even his coach, Doc Rivers, saying that he doesn't know if Simmons can be, quote unquote, a starting point guard on his team. I think what happened here is Daryl Morey biting off more than he can chew. Given the fact that, you know, him asking for way too much from other teams to a point where now other teams have sort of moved on and the team is sort of stuck with the team with Ben Simmons. It's going to be really awkward if they're unable to move him. You know, that first day of training camp, where even with fans, them burning the jerseys, coming back to the arena, I highly doubt they're going to come back with holes in their jerseys. But there's also reports of Ben Simmons not even wanting to report to training camp. So I think, you know what, it's time to move on. And it's time for Daryl Morey to just get whatever he can for Ben Simmons, because this is definitely not a healthy relationship between your star player, Joel Embiid, and I guess the rest of the team, including Ben Simmons if he does come back.
No, for sure. And the Philly fans are ruthless when they're doing well. So if they bring back Ben Simmons, I don't know what's going to happen to him. But moving on to a similar situation with Damian Lillard and the Trailblazers. So Ken, do you think that they're really going to move on from Dame time, since there were so many reports that this guy may potentially move?
Well, I mean, in all technicalities, right? He is signed on with an extension until 2025. So we just got to put that out there, that he can't just leave unless he pulls an Anthony Davis and pretty much forces himself out, or if the front office sees something that they like. But here are two names that the Portland Trailblazers signed this offseason to strengthen the Portland Trailblazer lineup: Tony Snell, Cody Zeller. If you were Damian Lillard and you were in Tokyo fighting for your country to win a gold medal, and you saw those signings, would you want to come back home and be like, all right, it's Dame time, guys? We got a squad now. Like, no way. Like, I before he even left, even like during the course of the playoffs, like it was made known that after they got bounced out once again, that he's unhappy, that there has to be changes, that the 1-2 punch of Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum just doesn't. It's not going to beat the Western Conference juggernauts. It's not good enough, unfortunately. They have a great team, scrappy team, and he's one of the best closers in the league. But unfortunately, it's just like I feel like if you're an organization, why are you so adamant about not moving a player that can get you a big haul, 1, and 2 is unhappy, and 3 you just haven't had success with? I mean, like it's one thing if Damian Lillard wants to be loyal and stay with the team, but like he's also a winner, and he wants to win, and he's not winning there. And as an organization, it's just like, why don't you want to win too? Like, I mean, like you're not winning. Like, are you okay with just first round, second round, bouncing off, and starting all over again the following year? If I'm the Portland Trail Blazers, I would take the best offer for him. And Ben Simmons, is that the best offer? Ben Simmons, I think Maxey and Thibault are also, and a pick are potentially the ones that is potentially the offer for Damian Lillard. Does that work out for both teams? I don't know. But I mean, I just feel like it's time for a fresh slate for this team, for both teams. Mm-hmm. And I think that the big mistake that both of these teams did was wait. And now most of the teams are already locked up on caps, locked up on players, and already like got jerseys for their for the new players. So I don't think any big moves are going to be made for a majority of the teams. You're a very, 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 very small opportunity here, and I think it has to be between the teams that we just talked about right now, the Portland Trail Blazers and the Philadelphia 76ers. Will it happen? I don't know, but I personally think it should.
Yeah, for sure. It's a matter of the organizations just holding on a little too long to the point where other teams are like, sorry guys, we got to move on with our life. So lastly, I have to go to our local Washington sports fan, EJ, for this one. EJ, is Bradley Beal showing us all the textbook definition of what loyalty is by staying with the Wizard, or is this just pure insanity on his end?
No, definitely not insanity. I think there's definitely a method to this madness because he's on his last year of his contract. So honestly, whether the Wizards, he can give it a shot this year with the Wizards, because obviously the Wizards are not going to win anything this year. But they do have a new look with Spencer Dinwiddie, Kyle Kuzma, KCP, Montrezl Harrell, a former Sixth Man of the Year. I mean, the squad is actually scarily deep, or very, low-key deep, to be honest with you. I was a little upset with, Russell Westbrook leaving, but the more I thought about it, we actually got a pretty good haul for Russell Westbrook. And with Bradley Beal being on the last year of his contract, I don't think it's insanity. He's definitely proven his loyalty, and you don't want to make a mistake like Dennis Schroeder, or let's give another example, Isaiah Thomas, who has so much passion for the sport of basketball, dropped 81 in a Pro-Am league this past week and was crying because the NBA gave up on him, and now he's just looking for a job, right? So I think Bradley Beal, especially having 2 kids and a family to think of when a contract is offered to him, and it's a huge contract that he did sign in previous years with the Washington Wizards. I don't think he has any problem with going throughout that entire contract, and then again playing up to the standard that he played to last year is going to give him another huge payday, especially if he remains healthy. But right now he has nothing to lose, being that it's his last year in this contract. And if he performs the way he does again, like he did last year, he would be up for another huge payday. And I wouldn't be surprised if he remained with the Washington Wizards, since they can give him the most or the max contract, or if he finds another place. But Bradley Beal, definitely, I think the first thing he thinks about is his family. And if he's going to get the whatever is the biggest return for him, I think that's what's important for him right now.
Yeah, for sure. Hopefully he's learning from other players of how not to go about your contract negotiations. So we'll see for sure. So switching over gears to some rookies that started their NBA career this week with the NBA Summer League, where usually first and second year players, shout out to Beasley, get some runs and for some even play for a roster spot. So of course, everyone is watching the draft, the top draft picks like Cade Cunningham, Jalen Green, shout out Scotty Barnes, Jalen Suggs. But Ken, from what you've seen so far, who has actually lived up to their place in the draft?
It has to be Jalen Suggs, really. I mean, I mentioned this earlier, and I'm going to mention it again. Toronto should have took this guy. He has that it factor. He really does. I mean, Jalen Green has it too. But Suggs, we saw in the March Madness earlier this year that game winner and pretty much all of his performances. There are just some players that have that it factor. It's really difficult to explain, but being able to just be at the right place at the right time at pretty much every play. I think that game against the Warriors, 24 points, 9 rebounds, 3 blocks, 2 assists, 2 steals. That's a big monster game. I mean, yeah, he sprained his thumb, I think, against the Celtics the other day, and so he's out for the rest of the summer league as precaution, which makes a lot of sense. But I mean, the time that he was on the floor, you can tell that this guy is that dude. It's really it really shows that he has the maturity of an NBA player, and I feel like he's going to be a good driving force, not just for as a rookie, but as an NBA player coming in. I feel like he's going to have an amazing first year, and he's going to be a very, very, very pesky guy on defense, and that's gonna be very annoying for the Eastern Conference teams.
Yeah, for sure. Trust me. There was a universal groan around Canada when we heard Scotty Barnes instead of Jalen Suggs. We were like, oh gosh, Messiah, what are you
I think
doing?
he had 8 points the other day versus Jalen Green, if I'm not mistaken.
Let's not talk about that.
Yeah, I don't think he scored until the fourth quarter. I tried to watch that. I was like, ooh, sorry.
Yeah, that's why a lot of Raptor fans are watching just to be like, hey, Masai, maybe you made a mistake. But anyways, Albert, for you, who's been the biggest surprise, whether good or bad?
Okay, just in defense of Scotty Barnes, I mean, he was hurt. He did step out to go to the locker room for a little bit. So, I mean, also, too, with regards to Summer League, it's very tough because it's such a very small sample size. I mean, we're judging these guys off of 1 or 2 games. And also, too, it's like they're playing against, not elite level competition just yet.
Well, that's what you would think that they would show up, right? And so, the guys that show up, you get it. They're showing up against lower talent. But the guys that don't show up, you're like, well, how are these going to
Why aren't you showing
against,
up?
How are they going to perform against, actual NBA talent when they can't even score here? But
Yeah, for sure. I do have to agree with Ken. I think Suggs is the better player right now, but we'll have to see in a couple of years how Scotty Barnes with his physical frame actually, pans out. But in terms of people who have lived up to their potential so far, I think the Warriors picks in Moses Moody or Moody Moses or however.
Okay, relax there.
And Kuminga. I think those two picks, they're really showing their not only their maturity but their ability to score, and them developing in the Warriors system is going to be really scary to see.
No, for sure. And I think it's important to kind of look at these players in context of the organizations. Like, some of these guys are going to not develop very well because of the organization that picked them, unfortunately. But part of the coverage that we've been seeing is just the stars who are showing up for their team in the stands. We've seen Steph Curry, Draymond, of course, rocking that gold medal proudly. Bets of the Raptors showing up, DeMar DeRozan, who's always showing up for his team. EJ, how important do you think it is for the vets and even the all-stars to make it out to these games that, don't really mean a whole lot? What kind of message does it send to the rookies?
Well, yeah, I mean, when vets show up, like Michael Beasley and Kenneth Faried for Portland, not in the stands, but playing. It's so crazy.
Crazy, bro, in a jersey.
Right, in a jersey on the court with these guys. It's hilarious that these guys are playing in the summer league. It's just insane. But anyway, I think it's very important, especially if your stars show up to your summer league game. It gives confidence to those rookies, and it shows a sense of camaraderie and a good relationship. And if you build a good relationship off the court or showing support even before you guys step onto the court together, I think it's a huge message that the rookies definitely appreciate if the stars or the veterans are there cheering them on and even giving them advice in the summer league to bring over to the regular NBA season.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's just the fact that they're showing up for you, whether or not like you're going to make it part of the team, they're still going to cheer you on for sure. So we're just going to have to wait and see what these teams can actually do, even after a very eventful offseason. But we're going to take a quick break. Don't go anywhere. We're going to move into some NFL talk. We'll be right back.
Fresh from your successful, ang babaeng walang pakiramdam. Eto naman, ikaw, ako, at ang ending. Tama ba?
Yes.
Kayo ba talagang both nag-start talaga sa theater na agad? O kayo meron bang nag-TV muna bago nag-theater? Kayong dalawa? Gerald?
Theater po talaga ako.
Pero how do you bond naman?
Pagkain.
Paano ang bonding?
Pagkain.
Maraming natutuwa, meron ding hindi, di ba? Wala tayong magagawa doon. Pero kayo, how do you handle that? Lalo na sa social media. Kim?
Ako, karamihan, deadma.
Yung respeto sa pagkatao. Not necessarily na, Gerald Napoles. Hindi, yung nire-respeto nila yung effort ko, yung artistry ko, yun. Yeah. Kasi hindi lahat ng kilala o sikat nire-respeto.
Totoo yan. Tama.
Diba?
Lahat ng yan, dito pa rin sa programang May Pagmamahal will give you another inspiring, unforgettable bonding moments.
Innovation, digital disruption, globalization, startups, micro, small, and medium enterprises, as well as large corporations, all face interesting challenges in the market today. Peek into the world of exciting opportunities and partnerships to drive growth with the latest business news and information. We are open for business. Your weekly dose of entrepreneurial inspiration to update you on the latest developments in the world of business. Get up close and personal with CEOs and thought leaders to help you discover valuable insights, sharpen your instincts for smart decision-making with the latest markets and economic trends, disruptive ideas, global innovation, social entrepreneurship, and other leading-edge business ideas. Join the conversations to create a more vibrant environment for entrepreneurship. Catch Open for Business, from vision to action.
Welcome back to EBC Sports International. So we're actually going to continue a little bit more on basketball talk because we love that topic. So now that we've seen that what some of the rookies and sophomores can do, and pretty much we're starting to see what each team is going to look like given their offseason move, let's make some way too early predictions about the upcoming season. So we've seen some big names move from one conference to another, with Westbrook, of course, joining the West and DeMar moving over to the East. So Albert, based on the moves that have been made and even the current makeup of the teams already, do you think the Western Conference is still the stronger conference, or has the East finally taken over?
I think it's sort of balanced out a little bit. The days of the Wild Wild West are, I think, days of the past. What has happened in the East is they've become a lot more top-heavy with teams like the Nets, the Bucks, and the 76ers. I'm going to put a question mark with them just with regards to Ben Simmons. But I think with a healthy West, they will definitely still beat the East. I guess we'll never know because the All-Star game is never going to be like that anymore. But I mean, injuries to Jamal Murray, Kawhi Leonard with his ACL, and even LeBron and AD, how hurt they were towards the end of last season. I think if those guys were healthy and you paired them up against the East, even though those changes have been made with regards to Westbrook and DeRozan, I think the West still has a little bit of an upper hand, but it's definitely sort of evened out a little bit. But again, the East is very, very top heavy. You have sort of like this tier of couple of teams, and then you have the rest of the East. So yeah,
it always seems like that with the East. It's always like that top 4, top 5 teams just are so, like you said, top heavy. But EJ, for you, who's the total wild card? Like, you have no idea what they're going to look like. They can go either way, good or
bad. Honestly, none of the bottom teams of the West or the East, I don't think made any type of good move, and I don't think that their draft picks are going to get them over the hump to make the playoffs. I mean, one team for sure that is going to be fun to watch is the Houston Rockets, especially if John Wall is healthy and Jalen Green is a star. That I obviously, with the Filipino blood in there, I'm pretty sure all of us are rooting for him to succeed. And pairing between the two of them would be great. And maybe they don't finish at the bottom of the NBA next year, right? It'll be definitely fun to watch them. The Detroit Pistons also, I don't think they're going to be at the bottom of the East anymore. They might move up a couple of spots. Maybe Toronto is now at the bottom of the East. But the Detroit Pistons, the Detroit Pistons with Cade Cunningham, and Jeremy Grant staying there. I think there's some pretty good talent there in Detroit. But one wild card to be a contender once again, especially if they find playing time for this guy, is the Denver Nuggets with Bol. I mean, Bol year after year. I mean, every time he steps onto the court, it's like he amazes the fans. He amazes the players on the court and his teammates. I mean, the guy is a giant who has a really good handle for a guy at his height. I mean, honestly, he might even have a comparable handle to Kevin Durant at that height. The guy could shoot from 3. He could shoot in the paint, and he's been blocking all these guys in the summer league. So he's there offensively and defensively. Why doesn't he have more playing time? I don't know. But if the Denver Nuggets find a way to give this guy some more playing time, especially if Jamal Murray is still going to be missing some time, they could definitely be a contender for a championship next year, especially if Jamal Murray gets healthy in the later half of the season.
Yeah, for sure. So speaking of contenders, Ken, I want to get your thoughts on this because they talked about it on the last show, but you weren't there. And as the Lakers #1 fan, I want to get your thoughts on LeBron's comments about kind of the shade that his team is getting now. And you mentioned it. They look old, but on paper they look great. So what are your general thoughts on their offseason moves?
It's one, with an average age of 55. Yes, the Lakers are old. I get it, but I think that they also signed some young guys: Kendrick Nunn, Malik Monk, a little bit. I mean, like THT, they re-signed, right? And then obviously Kent Bazemore is like an old young guy. But Westbrook is still plays like he's 22. So, yes. I mean, I think the big thing is get through the regular season with a respectable record, top 4. And this team in the playoffs, healthy, is a very, very hard out. It's just really difficult to beat amazing playmakers like Russell Westbrook and LeBron James, who I there's that stat of like most clutch players in the playoffs, or like most clutch player of each year. And I think in the last 10 years, I think 6 or 7 of the years was either Westbrook or LeBron James. So it just goes to show that these guys can close out a game, close out a series, and that's where I think the value of having older guys is in the playoffs. I think that's what I'm going to ride on, because yes, it's a very old team, and yes, there are 82 games, and yes, they aren't going to play every single game, each and every one of them. But I really do believe that this team has the actual personnel to get it done. I do.
Okay, well, we'll see. Hopefully that optimism works out for you. But moving on to some NFL news. So they're in their week 2 of their preseason, and this offseason was a big one for some young faces of the league, namely Josh Allen, the quarterback for the Buffalo Bills. So he now joins Patrick Mahomes as some of the highest paid players in the league. This week, he secured a 6-year, $258 million contract with the Bills. And just as a reminder, Mahomes is locked in at 10 years for $503 million. That's insane. So long-term contracts, especially in football, are less and less common. So Ken, what do you think about these long-term contracts, especially with Allen, that 6-year contract?
I mean, with quarterback, it's a whole different story, right? They are the face of the franchise. They either make your team win or lose. And both of these quarterbacks are winners, young winners. Look how old Tom Brady is. He just turned 44. So even with the length of these contracts, these guys are still going to have another potential 10-year contract after these contracts are done, because of how well the rules are for preserving quarterbacks. I think that's what is ideal. Yeah. And that's why the quarterbacks are, unless it's a freak injury, they're able to have a longer career and able to continue to produce for a longer time because of the preservation, the lack of heavy hits on the quarterbacks. So I think these are great moves for these organizations to keep the face of their franchises. And these are both proven winners. So I think amazing moves.
Yeah, for sure. And just keeping the face of football nice and young always helps the sport for sure. So EJ, jumping into some very first impressions so far, who are you penciling in for the AFC divisions?
I mean, AFC East, we just talked about him signing this huge contract, Josh Allen, leading the Buffalo Bills. And I don't think any of the other teams in the AFC East are going to be able to touch them. And obviously in the West, it's the Chiefs. They're the team to beat. They're obviously going to dominate once again, especially with Patrick Mahomes there. And then we go to the South, and it was actually a close battle last year between the Titans and the Colts. I still give the edge to the Titans, who will probably be the ones to edge out the Colts this time to make it into the playoffs. And for the AFC North, that's where it all gets tight, because the Browns, the Ravens, and the Steelers were all competing for that top spot last year. I would have to give the edge to the Ravens. I think that they have the most upside, especially with Lamar Jackson behind the helm, and the Steelers. I mean, if you're relying on Big Ben again, it's just going to be tough to have him at this age produce. I mean, I don't think he's a Tom Brady. He doesn't play the same way. So I definitely give the edge to the Ravens over there in AFC North.
So in terms of NFC, Al, where do you see your Seahawks in this? Really quick predictions for this one.
Starting off with the NFC East, I think the EJ's Washington football team has a little bit of an edge over the Cowboys. Obviously, with the South, you have the reigning champs, the Bucks. The North, I'm going to go with the Packers, even though there's some question marks with regards to Aaron Rodgers. West, I think it's a toss-up between the Rams and the Seahawks. The Rams got an upgrade with regards to Jared Goff and getting Matt Stafford, so we'll see. And I think those teams are the ones that are going to fight for a playoff spot. And
Yeah, for sure. We'll keep a close eye on your predictions for sure. So, of course, it wouldn't be the show without question of the week. And in honor of the Field of Dreams games, for the Chicago White Sox got their movie moment with a walk-off win against the Yankees. Which fictional field, arena, or even team do you wish could come to life so that the real-life athletes can play? For me, it's got to be a league of their own. There's no crying in baseball. The Rockford Peaches for me. What about you, EJ?
For me, NBA Street Volume 2, I love Stretch, Biggie Smalls, and Whitewater. They'll be cool to watch.
Good choice. Ken, what about you?
Fly, Team Karasuno, Haikyuu, all day.
Quick question. Do you think you could actually beat them? Because I know you play a lot of volleyball.
I mean, they're all really short, so maybe, but I don't. I highly doubt it. Highly doubt it.
And lastly, Al, what about you?
I'm gonna go with the Toon Squad in Space Jam. It'd be fun to play with some cartoon characters.
Of course.
Classic. I was waiting for someone to say that. So that's all the time that we have for this week's episode. On behalf of everyone on the panel, thank you so much for joining us, and be sure to tune in again next week. Make sure to visit our website at eaglenews.net, eaglenewslive.com, and of course, like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at EagleNewsPH to join the conversation. For EBC Sports International, I'm Zarita Sese. We live in interesting times.
Kinikita ko po dati sa 1 week, umaabot po ng 4,000. Ngayon po sa isang linggo, 700, 800. 2 araw pa po yun kung minsan.